Hi buddy, Paul here from Ballistic Blubberlets. Happy Halloween to everybody. 'Tis the season of ghouls, ghosts, witches and ghoulish beasties. And what better time to share than during the Halloween season than 5 horror films, 5 classic terrifying horror films that you may just not have seen or heard of. The title says 5 horror films you've never seen, but of course die-hard horror fans will always find a way of finding these gems. But for those of a more general audience, and even to those who are horror collectors and fans such as myself, there may just be 1 or 2 movies here that you may not have heard of or may not have seen. So let's get on with it and see what we've got, and what better place to start than with a classic film from 1964, The Flesh Eaters. Great old school goodness right here, and available on DVD, which is the way that we want it. If not, of course, on Blu-ray. But this is a good old school classic and very much ahead of its time. Film revolves around a small plane which is caught up in bad weather and force lands upon a secluded island, and the occupant actress and her female assistant, along with their pilot, are soon caught up in a terror-filled scenario that has a reclusive Nazi scientist embroiling them in his insane plans that he's of course worked on in secret for many decades on the island in seclusion. So, classic tale, familiar tale, but this one is well told and delivers in spades. Really is that old school goodness here. And the island itself, of course, which is where the ghoulishness comes in, is surrounded by his experiments, the Nazi scientists' experiments, as within the water are his carnivorous creations, feeding off electricity and blood. Now the storm that has stranded the down plane's occupants is of course an electrical one, and the island is about to be invaded by flesh-hungry, electricity-fueled, ghoulish creatures which have grown all out of proportion. Good old school schlock horror here, ahead of its time with its blood and gore, and includes an unsettling deleted Nazi experiment sequence in the special features as well. Very much worth checking this one out. It is very, very good, and as I say, it is most definitely ahead of its time. Nice DVD release here, so this one is definitely worth checking out, and number 1 in the list of horror films that you may never have seen or heard of before. Okay, let's get right on into it, and on with DVD number 2. Again, another great old school classic, and this one goes back to 1959. Terror is a Man. Now, this one's directed by Gerardo de Leon, and is actually, as most horror fans will know, all about the goriness from the Philippines, and perhaps most well known to horror fans, of course, are the delights of the Filipino Blood Island films from Eddie Ramiro, and starring American actor John Ashley. John Ashley, of course, famous, or perhaps most famous, for doing the voiceover to the A-Team, as I've mentioned before. But this is technically the first that led to those great Filipino Blood Island horror films, and it's loosely based on the island of Dr. Moreau. Again, this one comes a nice DVD release, and a nice little accompanying booklet there on the left hand side. Very good old school horror, and a nice DVD release of this one as well, so certainly is available. Probably a little bit more tricky to pick up, but well worth your time. And with this story being loosely based upon the island of Dr. Moreau, I think you get a taste of what it's all about. The story, of course, is Terror is a Man is the tale of a mad scientist who transforms a panther into a man-like creature, or creature-like man, who then of course escapes from the lab and goes on a murderous rampage, which is what we want to see, of course. And even for 1959, it is some murderous rampage, very well lit, in a very dark scenes, but extremely well done. And again, for the year that it's released, 1959, has got some startling moments and that bit of gore and grisliness about it. So with the creature escaping from the lab, terrorising all the locals. And when this one was actually first released, the movie had a quirky gimmick of a warning to the audience, and the warning of impending horror attacks, which was set off by the sounding of a warning bell. So there we are. Terror is a Man. Good old school horror from 1959. Goodness. Okay, continuing on with the goodness of the horror season for Halloween, into a good old late 60s, 1967 Russian horror fantasy, The Vi. This is pure classic fantasy horror cinema at its finest, and definitely needs to be seen. This perhaps is, of the three shown so far, the more familiar to horror fantasy fans out there, but again, definitely one that I wanted to bring to people's attention because it actually demands to be seen. So very good is The Vi. Great old school horror making, no silly effects, old school effects, lots of practical effects in this one, and a story, classic story, ghostly goings on, demons and ghouls and hellish visions. So very good indeed, and a nice DVD release of the movie here as well. Now, The Vi, 1967, as I say, a fantastical Russian fantasy horror film that tells the tale of a young priest who has to spend 3 nights alone in an old, remote, wooden-built church, residing over the corpse of a witch. He must survive by his wits to overcome visitations during the long, dark nights from the embodiment of hell's souls, taunting him and testing his faith as the witch fights to regain position from beyond the dead before the 3 days and nights are up. The Vi is the demonic entity central to the movie plot itself. Let's just bring in the DVD as well. Nice, fairly simple picture artwork there, but nicely done. Good standard stuff, and complements the DVD release itself. Now, The Vi is, as I say, very much a demonic entity central to the story of this one, but so good. So, Vi, should you watch this? Because it's a must-see horror fantasy. That's Vi. Now, for about the last 10 years or so, or even longer it seems, a big budget remake has been in development of this, and curiously the film has recently crept out on DVD under the title of Forbidden Empire. It stars Andrei Smolikov and features Jason Fleming and Charles Dance to open the Russian classic to a worldwide audience, it would seem. But the promotion of the film and the changing of the title does not bode well for its success, which is cause for some concern, and in a way very much a great shame, because it's a film I want to see, but want to see properly, and if it was released at the cinema, it's definitely one I would have considered seeing. So shame, but definitely worth seeking out, and I put more details about that in the link section below. But on the old school one, The Vi here, the original Russian 1967 classic, is most definitely worth your time and trouble. Here we go then with a real classic of British horror cinema, The Strange World of Planet X from 1958. And again, dare I say, a horror that was ahead of its time. Very, very glad to have picked this one up fairly recently, and a film I have never seen before, and it was, until recently, very, very tricky to pick up. Let's just have a look at the DVD as well. Nice cover artwork there, but The Strange World of Planet X, very tricky, as I say, to pick up, and delighted to now own this one and to share its goodness here. This one's directed by Scottish director Gilbert Gunn, and it's one that comes definitely very much in the horror gem category, and stars Forrest Tucker. The story on this one is about a benevolent alien being who gives warning against experiments upon the Earth's magnetic field to the occupants of the planet Earth. But of course they go ignored, and a group of scientists pay no heed and go right on ahead in dabbling with the fields, which of course unwittingly brings about aberrations of nature, which is of course what we want to know, what we want to see with a title like The Strange World of Planet X. All the goodness, all the gore, all the aberrations you can throw at us, that's what we want to see. But continuing with the tale of this one, in the woods surrounding the research centre of these belligerent, ignorant scientists, their research station, there is some gruesome murders that take place and continue to take place. And it's not long before the cause of these hideous killings presents itself in the shape of even more grisly, grossly misshapen terrors and gigantically mutated insect form. Mutations of science, mutations of nature brought about by the dabblings of these scientists. And the insects attack in number, and the horror really comes to be in the last part of this very much underlooked and or overlooked and very difficult to find horror film. Strange World of Planet X, British made beastie with bug bites aplenty. Now interestingly, this 1958 film, as rare as it is, but even rarer it seems, is the 1956 TV series upon which it is actually based. So not only have we got this great overlooked 1958 horror film from Britain, we've got a 1956 TV series that precedes it as well. So definitely check this one out, and if you have seen it, let me know your thoughts on it. This is The Strange World of Planet X. Okay then, on we go. As darkness falls across the land, let's continue with 5 horror films you've never seen, and a real favourite of mine, very much overlooked, The Lost Continent from Hammer Horror Film Studios. This is a US disc release on DVD, and the best version to pick up. I'll explain why momentarily, but it comes in a 2-movie feature double disc release, Hammer Collection, which also has not only the fantastic The Lost Continent, but also The Reptile, very much a horror staple of Hammer Horror. The Reptile, that is one that most people would definitely have seen repeatedly shown on late night TV showings. But it's this film here, The Lost Continent, that is pretty darn tricky to get to see. And even when it is shown on TV, it's certainly here in the UK, it's shown in a truncated cut version. And as I say, I'll touch on that momentarily. But The Lost Continent, 1968 Hammer Horror film production, directed by Michael Carreras. And for me, it is definitely one of Hammer Horror film greats, standing up to the test of time and just as enthralling and eerie a view today as it was almost 40 years ago when it first came out. Story is about an eclectic bunch of people, all with life's troubles between them, seeking to escape from regular civilization for a spell, sort themselves out, and they take to getting away on a well-weathered, creaky and leaky old cargo ship owned by Captain Captain Lanson, who's played by Hammer Horror regular Eric Porter. Now, whilst out at sea, of course, a violent storm hits upon them and sends the beleaguered cargo ship into uncharted waters, and it soon becomes enveloped in a quagmire and enshrouded by a dense, mysterious fog. All good, ghoulish scene setting, typical to Hammer Horror, but this one is just something a little bit different from Hammer that sets it very much apart, and it is certainly more of an adult themed horror from Hammer than anything else that they perhaps put out. But in the Lost Continent, it is as if time itself has stopped in this eerie land, and the lost island, land of the lost, as the captain and his ramshackle basic crew, along with the small group of passengers, are soon set upon by mysteriously clad, centuries-old, apparelled Spanish conquistadores. And the ship survivors have to adapt pretty soon in order to fight and survive. But the pirate conquistadores are not all that they have to worry about, as the mysterious region they have come upon, entangled up and just trapped within, as all manner of mutated creatures are waiting for them and hungry for their next meal as well. The Lost Continent is just superb, old school, practical effects, creature creations of some staggering variety. These creatures just do stand out very, very well, and do certainly hold up to any scrutiny today, and much better than anything that you're going to find on the Sci-Fi Channel. Really well designed, very convincing, and the whole effect and design set is just superbly done. Really great old school filmmaking. Not only that, we've got the eerie setting and ominous soundtrack as well to The Lost Continent. Just makes this a must-see, overlooked and hard to come by classic horror. Now, the TV and DVD versions of the standard releases, as I touched on earlier, of this are cut by some 8 minutes, and that was done by the film's original distributor due to adult nature and themes within the film. And even when you watch it today with this American release, with the reinstated 8 minutes extra, you really do get a feel for the adult nature, as I say, and the themes within this movie. But if you're going to check this one out, do please be sure to check out the American release. This is the DVD to go for, but for me, a real classic to end on The Lost Continent. Hope you enjoyed this one, and please do let me know your thoughts on any of the films that I've touched upon in this video. And if you get a chance, let me know what your 5 rare films are. Doesn't have to be a horror film. Let me know: action, adventure, comedy, science fiction, anything you like. 5 rare films that I think that people will be interested in checking out. If you get time to do a video, that would be fantastic. Video to be sent of what your thoughts are, and we can chat about that as well. Look very much forward to it. But for now, thanks very much, everybody. Have a happy and safe Halloween. Take care. See you all soon. Bye for now.